Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of that cruise show. And today we have some special guests. We have our usual people, Ashley and James. And today we also have Daniel and Melissa Garcia from Roaming My Planet. And they're going to be here today helping us discuss what outcomes came from I keep screwing up the name of it, the document, the safe sail document that Royal Caribbean and Norwegian put together. Correct, Ashley? Am I right?
It's essentially it's called the Healthy Sail Panel. Yeah.
Yes. So I read through all of it. James laughed at me because he's like, "Why are you reading through everything? You can just skim." Because I want to know the real details. So we have a lot to talk about today. But first, we're going to talk about some cruise news. I guess I'll start first. I don't usually go first, but I was on a Virgin Voyages phone call yesterday, and they were talking about the Valiant Lady. And she is going to be doing 7-day cruises when she comes to the United States, which is a big thing for especially West Coast people, because we don't want to just fly somewhere for a 5-day cruise, cross country. We want something a little more substantial. And the new ports they're going to be going to with the Valiant Lady are Roatan and St. Croix, which not a lot of people are going to St. Croix right now. So on the Eastern Caribbean side, it'll be St. Croix, whatever the place in the Dominican Republic they have, and then the Bimini Beach Resort. So that'll be really nice. And
Puerto Plata.
But they also they have their, sorry, when I hear the echo, it kind of bothers me. But they also have really good deals on their transatlantics too. I think for one of the transatlantics to the U.S., it was 11 days, and it was something like $5,000 for one of their cool suites. So that's not bad for two people.
Not bad.
So I'm excited. I just want cruising to start. They're excited. And it's good news, too, because we heard all this. I mean, we had Lindsay from Virgin Voyages, who was very positive. But earlier this year, we heard, Virgin Voyages was in trouble and all of this. So it's great to hear positive things coming from a line that hasn't even started yet. It makes you feel very hopeful for everybody else. How about you, Ashley? You hear anything new?
Yeah, there's a few things here. So again, I've got my list. Pardon me for glancing over here. But Sun Princess and Sea Princess, unfortunately, are going to be leaving the Princess Cruises fleet. They were based over in Australia, so that's going to be kind of a big hit for that market. They haven't announced a buyer yet, so we're not really sure where the ships are going, if they're going to continue sailing or if they're going to be scrapped. I'm starting to fear that it's going to be the latter, unfortunately, but I guess we will see. Carnival Mardi Gras. Carnival released some Atrium photos. It looks like it's going to be a pretty neat venue. Instead of being sort of a round central area, like kind of, in the middle of the ship, it's usually like a round area with like elevator banks, and then you've got bars and lounges and stuff. It almost seems like it's going to be kind of turned on its side. So it almost looks like stadium seating from the photos, facing these three decks.
I actually have those photos up if you want me to throw them up on the screen, and we can
sure.
Pretty.
It is very pretty. It's definitely a unique design. So I guess it'll face out from the center of the ship toward the side of the ship, and then you've got those huge sweeping windows. And it kind of looks like a theater to me. And I think there is going to be a stage there for shows, which they haven't announced yet, like the specifics of that. What's interesting is they made a point of saying that it's decks 6, 7, and 8. And so my first thought, since it's like the central hub, deck 6, 7, 8, I thought 6, 7, 8 Ocean Place, like Norwegian has. And I think they also mentioned in the press release that it's going to be one of like 6 special areas on the ship, which reminded me of Royal Caribbean and its neighborhoods. So I'm certain that as they announce more, there will be aspects that differentiate it, but it seems sort of like maybe they're pulling little elements from other areas and incorporating them into something new and fresh.
You know what it reminded me almost exactly of is, and it's not an atrium on the quantum class, but it reminded me almost exactly of what the quantum class has done in their what the room is called. With they have the big windows in the front, and they have a show. I think it's kind of like a Cirque du Soleil kind of show.
Is it 270?
Is it 270? Something like that. But it seemed very, very similar, where it's kind of a public space during the day, but a theater-like thing at night. And if you wanted to sit there and just look at the big, windows, although I think that one faces aft or faces forward. It's this one I wasn't really sure where it's actually located on the ship, but clearly it's not, buried in the bowels of the ship like traditional atriums, which is nice.
Right. I think it reminds me a little bit of Eden too. Maybe not quite as big or as like intricately designed, but
I have not looked, but I'm going to slow the name of the Ida. It basically Mardi Gras sister ship. There's two of the same class that are sailing right now. Do they have something similar to this?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
There's so Mardi Gras is not the first in its class. There's one or two from Ida or Ada that are in the same classes as Mardi Gras will be. Have you had a chance to look at those ships and see what?
I haven't heard.
Don't know much about Ada at all.
I think it's because it's not geared towards the American market.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Because I know that they launched first with their LNG ship, and I think that's the same class, kind of the same way that that Costa and I think it's Ada. Ada's Carnival, isn't it? Or no, that's not Carnival.
It is, but it's a fully German-speaking line, so it's
right.
To the U.S. at all, but
yeah,
and you're right. They were the first LNG. I think was it Ida Luna, maybe.
Oh, I was going to say, you could always go on there and see what it's like when people come and go on our cruises and cannot speak English.
I bet they'd have good brats.
Could be.
And anyhow, sorry to hijack you on that, but I think that would. No, I'm definitely after the show. I'll check it out and see, because I would find it hard to believe that that's a fully unique feature, but I really like the design element. I'm surprised that we haven't heard about it yet. Because that would be nice to kind of walk onto a ship and see sunshine, as opposed to walk on the ship and seeing just artificial lights. And I feel like the older ships had really nice skylights, and then somehow we got away from that. And it's nice, but it's like walking into a hotel now. And it's when I go on a cruise, I don't go there to go to the Hilton. I go there to see the water and to see the sunshine and that kind of stuff. So that'll be nice to see how that actually works in practice.
I heard they're going to have like translucent panels with like virtual waterfalls. Yeah, it's going to be super pretty. And I also heard that they're going to feature like specialty cocktails that are going to be inspired by the theme of that evening's entertainment, and that there will be performers.
Great. Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm excited to see it. I feel like they're doing a good job of making it like new, but also throwback with the whole Mardi Gras name and the theme and stuff. So last week, 2 Florida senators got together and proposed something called the Set Sail Safely Act, which I didn't have time to dig too far into it, but it at first glance, it looks like they would be removing the CDC from decision making in terms of the resumption of sailings, which is interesting. And then, of course, the big news for this week, which is the main topic of our discussion today, is the Healthy Sail Panel's 69-page PDF with 74 recommendations for how the cruise industry can safely resume sailing. This was a joint effort between the Royal Caribbean Group and Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings. They've been working on it very diligently with a lot of scientists, medical experts, former government officials, and stakeholders from some of the ports that the cruise lines call on, particularly in the Caribbean. A lot of really good stuff in there, but most of it is stuff that we have already heard about. Things like mask wearing, social distancing, sailing at a limited or reduced capacity, shorter sailings, bubble cruising to private islands. So I guess we're going to jump some more into that today, but it also went on to kind of take it a step further and say, if there is an outbreak on board, this is how we're going to handle it, or how we recommend other cruise lines to handle it. It's an open source proposal, meaning that other cruise companies can take it and modify it for their use on board. A lot of things in there about shore excursions, how they're going to determine the port calls that they make, and also how they're going to screen for the virus prior to boarding. So a lot of really good stuff that we will pick apart for you.
Hey, and Ashley, just because I couldn't wait till after the show, I decided to look at it's Ida Nova is the name of its sister ship, and Costa Smeralda. Again, I'm a dumb American and I can't pronounce those European names, so I'll just it's Schmelda, something. And just like that, James got disinvited to all Costa ship tours, which actually I really enjoyed my tour on Luminosa that we had before. But anyhow, so Ida Nova, and I'm probably mispronouncing something that does have something that they refer to as the Atrium. However, it is a much smaller venue, and it's much more curved, and there's no outdoor area. It looks like it has windows on the side, but it looks like a much more traditional atrium. So that's very interesting that, these are massive ships that I can't imagine that you would have differentiations of that big, in there. So I guess we will have to wait another, 8 months until Mardi Gras comes out, and we'll have to set out to, where's Mardi Gras sailing out? I would assume New Orleans, right? Or no?
I'm not sure. I feel like everything keeps changing.
Port Canaveral? Okay.
I think last time I heard it was Port Canaveral.
So
I always usually try to start things either in Miami or Port Canaveral and then move them around from there.
That makes sense.
Because they'll have the greatest amount of people come to Florida to experience the new ship.
I'm curious to see. So if the atrium is just on the one side of the ship, is there like a similar venue on the other side to balance it out, or is it just something else completely, like cabins?
Well, here, let me just show you what this looks like right now.
You're going to have to take turns on when you can be on one side of the ship and when you can be on the other.
So it doesn't tip over. You're going to balance out the...
Oh, actually, you know what? I just looked at it. It's the atrium has been a feature on Ada ships in general.
The sideways one, though? Like the one that faces the side?
No, I'm going to take this off. I don't know what the hell. For those of you who haven't figured out, I'm operating at a disadvantage today because my webcam didn't work, so I'm trying to manage to throw stuff up on the screen from my desktop. And I don't know what I just showed you guys with a flight video of some sort, but that flight video was not Ida. It was not even a cruise ship, so I'm just going to stop right there. No, it sounds like that Ada has been doing shows in their theaters on previous ships as well. So it sounds like this might be an evolution of that concept, which really that's kind of Carnival's wheelhouse, is to take good ideas and make them better without doing anything revolutionary. And I think that you can see that throughout their entire ship design, and fundamentally everything's been an evolution of the Destiny class ships for the past 20 years without, versus what Royal Caribbean does of taking something and just making it radical. And that's a good thing. And that's one reason why I like Carnival, but.
Well, moving on to what we're here to discuss today. Before we get down to the nitty gritty, Ashley already told us kind of a little bit about the healthy sail. Why am I forgetting the rest of it? It's
the healthy sail panel.
I keep wanting to say report, yes. But I'm going to kind of go around and just generalize and tell me kind of how you feel about it, if you think it's good, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of why you like it or there are things you don't. I think it was pretty good. I think that, I guess, being the person I like to prove things, I wish they would have said in a lot of their points, we've already done that. We already do this kind of thing. But I think it's good for, the public to look at it too and to see. But overall, it was good. What do you think, Daniel, Melissa?
I like it. I feel like there's still a lot of people out there who are scared to cruise, and I think this will just give them one more little thing on their belt to be to feel more comfortable cruising. A lot of the steps that they were already taken, it's kind of like you said, when you don't speak about it, you don't realize, oh, they're already doing half of this stuff. But some of the extra things, like controlling on the excursions, I know some of the things like you won't be able to go off on your own. You'll need to stay with him, but I think that's just for the protection of all the passengers and things like that.
It'll definitely be a different experience, but not to say that's better or worse. It'll just be different. And I do like how they were kind of phasing things in. They were going to they talked about slowly working up to more and more capacity, and I think that's a kind of dipping your toe in the water first instead of just jumping in is a good idea.
There I am. Exactly. What do you think, James?
I think it's about time. I think I think more than anything that they could have written in there, the fact that it was so detailed and so much attention was put into it. There was good things and bad things in that panel. I mean, there's certain things that I know a lot of people on the community boards would reject completely. But at the same time, I think that the cruise industry has recognized that it's not about, saving face. It's not about, blowing smoke off people's asses. It's about getting the ships back out in the water and, and understanding that some things are going to be difficult. Yeah. You're not going to be able to go to, the buffets and grab the tongs the way you would normally. Yes, you're going to have to wear masks. No, you're not going to be able to have, boarding with, 3,000 people crowded together in a security line. But it's not about what we can't do. It's about what we can do and how to do it again. And so I think from that perspective, it was really impressive to see the cruise industry come together. And I have to assume that there's a similar document somewhere that world's leading cruise lines has also prepared. But I really wish it was CLIA doing it, and not just two lines that, while impressive and while they represent, I don't know, combined probably 30% of the market. It would be nice if CLIA, representing 95% of the market, would have prepared the document so there wouldn't be any political discussion. But maybe that's good. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how effective CLIA has been in this whole process. It could be that they're doing things behind the scenes and we're just not seeing it. They did come together and present an initial list of recommendations to the CDC. I think it was back in April, so months ago, and the CDC just kind of seems like it's dragging its feet, taking forever to give any feedback. This report does coincide with the end of the public comment period, which we talked about last week. I think it was. I'm losing track of time.
The fact that it came out on the 21st was not an accident.
Right.
I mean, to release it on the last day so that other people couldn't kind of either steal that stuff or to kind of put an exclamation point or a period, whatever the punctuation you want to use, on the conversation was clearly designed to do that.
Yeah.
But it's good.
This addressed those the questions that the CDC was asking during the public comment. This addressed a lot of them point by point, which is great. I think they are really insightful recommendations. And I think I was reading actually that the CDC is supposed to make a decision this week. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, that's great. And hopefully it's a decision that will be favorable for everyone who's dying to get back on board. And as far as
I actually saw a cruise industry insider cited that cruising will resume within 30 days, and that they had some inside knowledge on that. And I'd like to think that was true, but I think it. I don't see how it can really be done unless what we've been seeing. Kind of we talked about before that some of the ships are moving around now, and some of the ships are doing lifeboat drills and stuff that they haven't been doing in the past. That maybe there is something, but it's not. It's not either way. It's not going to be everybody.
I don't think anything's going to happen before Thanksgiving. I can see some people trying to get the end of Christmas, maybe, or starting in the new year. It's a little too soon, and I don't think they'll have the people yet there. I mean, there's nobody on most of these ships, so they have to train people.
I've seen rumblings that the crew members are getting ready to. I don't know if it's true. It's a rumor at this point, but on social media, there's been some photos of that crew members have posted that they're packing their bags, getting ready to leave, that the cruise lines have these big welcome back crew member banners. And so I hope maybe they're just getting ready for when it does start to happen, but I hope it's already underway and we're just not seeing it. That would be great. The cruise lines are telling, there was a press conference that Clea did when this report came out, and they were saying that there were some of the CEOs of the major lines were on the call as well, and they were saying that they're ready to go within 30 days. If the CDC says, yep, as of today, you're allowed to start sailing, or why that's not going to happen. But if it did, the lines could be ready within a month. And I'm thinking, even though the no sail order is set to expire at the end of this month, if it's not extended, the cruise lines voluntarily pushed back until the end of October. And I'm wondering if that was strategic, if they were expecting a decision by the end of September. And so that 30-day window would put them at the end of October.
I think according
to this document, it says that, how to bring people back on board. They have to be tested, of course, before, tested then, and then the staff also have to be quarantined for 7 days before they're allowed to do any of their duties, which is good. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to plan before it, and then teaching everybody the new protocols. That takes a lot of time, and people who are so used to doing the same thing, that have been doing it for, let's say, 20 years there's a lot of stuff that is exactly the same, but there's a lot of stuff that's going to be new that they're going to have to learn. So that's kind of why I think it's going to be a little bit later. And also, we have a friend whose daughter is a performer for one of the cruise lines, and she specifically told James it wasn't going to be till next year. Correct, James?
For her contract, it would not be until sometime next year. But that doesn't mean. I mean, I can see a situation where entertainment staff would be one of the non-essential to return. But I don't know. I mean, they just laid off 4,000 people from Carnival, including bridge officers and that kind of stuff too. So I mean, I think it's everything's in a flux. But I think what to me is going to dictate as much as anything that's in this report, or as much as anything that's practical in the United States, is the fact that for the last 3 months or so, Europe has been relatively low instances of coronavirus, and they've felt safe enough to let their ships sail. And I think what we're finding is that coronavirus isn't, and I don't want to get into political, this is purely just my observations, but we've discovered that coronavirus is not something you can eliminate. It's something that you have to mitigate. And so as the Europeans have gone back and open everything wide open, the instances are coming back in significant ways. And so will the Europeans be able to maintain cruising even as the cases return? Or will it be something that can't be contained in a level that's similar to what we have in the U.S.? Whereas the U.S. mentality has been like, let's just keep it at a level that can be controlled as opposed to eliminated. And, our European brothers and sisters are going to ultimately lead the way in terms of answering that question.
I'm curious I tried to read as much of it as I could, but there's, like you said, there's like 1 million pages in that thing. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle the entertainment. I know they said they were going to focus on a lot more of the outside activities, but, what are they going to do about shows? Are they going to add another show? Are they going to limit? And how are they going to do that? Because especially with the seating, I mean, you've got a lot of those booths and things. And if you're going to limit people, like some of the things that we were discussing is if you have a lot of singles, do they take up one booth, or how are they going to do that?
Same thing goes with dinner too. I mean, if you're sitting at a table with 3 other couples, is you just going to be just you and your spouse or whoever you're with now? I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be different that I'm curious to see how they're going to do.
Yeah, I'm curious about the dining as well. I know they're going to be reducing capacity, but there are still, only so many tables, and they have to be spaced at a certain interval. And I think I heard, again, I don't know if this is just a rumor. I didn't see anything specifically about it in this report, but heard that they might be transitioning some of the buffets into waiter served like restaurant areas instead. So maybe that would be like another offshoot of the dining room on some ships. I'm not sure how they're going to handle that. But overall, one of the things I like about these proposal or the proposal and these specific points that they are recommending is that there's a lot of room for interpretation. So each line and each ship can kind of tweak it to meet its own needs, which is great. And of course, I think we should preface this too for anyone listening that this proposal there's nothing set in stone. It's not an official anything. It's just a set of recommendations from the cruise lines to the CDC saying, hey, this is what we think you should implement, or tell us that we have to implement. This is what we think would keep passengers the safest. One of the big things that I don't think was addressed prior to when this report came out is the ventilation. I know that was a big concern for a lot of people. And so what they're planning to do is on ships where it's feasible, they're going to try to infuse some fresh air into the heating and air conditioning systems, which will be great. So it won't be that like stale recycled air that you see on planes and stuff. And they're going to use specific types of filters that will aim to catch anything that is floating around. So I think that for me, that was one of the more comforting things to see included.
I liked that as well. I kind of got a little geeky on that whole aspect and dove in a little bit more to see what kind of filters they were using before. So before they were using your general dust filters, they would get dust, maybe some smells, stuff like that. This time they're going up to the second highest HEPA filter. There still is one HEPA filter that's the best on top of it. I know price points are different, but it just was, I was kind of wondering on that aspect. I was reading how some cruise lines right now, MSC is bringing fresh air in constantly. They're not recycling air at all on their ship. And I was reading, and I don't know if this is true because I only read one source, that it actually is cheaper to constantly bring in fresh air for the ship. Not sure if that's true. I'd have to look more into that. But MSC is currently bringing in fresh air. And plus, I also read that even if you didn't have fresh air all the time and it is recycled, the way the ventilation system is on the ship, to get a virus from it, it's not impossible, but it likely is impossible. They're like, there's this little tiny, because of the way the ventilation is. So that's a good thing. I will say in the past, my in-laws have asked them to change the filter in their room because they've noticed like scratchy throat or something like that, and they've come in and change their filter. So I wonder how they would be on that now if somebody's like, can you please change my filter? Because, of course, everybody's going to want that. But no, I think it's good. I wonder, how much that's going to cost extra per cruise line. The other thing that was really interesting to me, and I just have to say it because it was interesting. It says that outside, if there's a crowd, they suggest wearing a mask. But if there's no crowd and you're outside, not to wear a mask. Well, MSC's regulations currently say that no matter where you're at, you have to wear a mask. And so far, that's been working really good for them. So I'm kind of on the whole, just wear the mask outside, kind of bandwagon at this point in time, till we figure out if we can decrease So, and yesterday was the first time the national news has talked about MSC restarting. And they made it sound like MSC just restarted yesterday. Not that they've been doing this for 4 weeks already.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Was there any? Exactly. And I'm like, oh no, this has been going on for a while.
Yeah. I think the mask thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is there anything else you guys really sparked your interest?
The mask thing for me is a big one. I know that was like one of the biggest questions everyone had is, are we going to have to wear them when we get back on board? And what the report says is we think, at least in the beginning, yes, you should wear them. They are recommending them, like you said, outdoors if you can't socially distance. Otherwise, they're not necessarily recommending it for outdoor activities. For indoors in public areas, they're requiring them at all times, even if you are able to socially distance, which I think is good. I'm just wondering, though, how serious people are going to take it, and what the cruise lines plan to do about those who don't take it seriously. I mean, what are the penalties here? That's not really discussed in the report, which, I guess each cruise line is going to have to make its own rules for that. But that's my biggest question for the whole report, not just for face masks. If there are other things people are doing that are not complying, what does that look like? Are you going to be disembarked? Are you going to be not allowed to get back on board, like what MSC did with the people who deviated from their planned shore excursion? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions,
and that's going to be a tough one because once again, you're relying on staff. Staff of course has to do it, but we all know that cruise line staff, they don't want to get anybody upset. They kind of walk around and like, okay, please don't do that, and then leave. And they're really nice, but we need some tough people there, right?
Yeah. And I think that by and large, a lot of people, the people who are brave enough to get back on board are really huge cruise fans, and they're so cruise starved that they're going to follow whatever rules they have to just to be able to stay on board.
I think it'll be also interesting to see some of these destinations and excursions, like beaches, and how are they going to social distance for these beach destinations. I know there's going to be limitations, but
one thing I got reading the document, I was really impressed on the doctors. They were going to make sure that the doctors on the ships are going to be trained in outbreaks and are going to be trained in how to handle not just COVID, but other outbreaks. So maybe this will ease everybody's mind on not just the COVID stuff, but other things.
One huge thing that I really liked on there was the fact that they're not going to go to any port that would not allow somebody who has an illness such as coronavirus off the ship, which this should have been in place a long time ago. You're not it isn't right. Somebody needs medical attention, get them off the ship, keep them close. You're not going to let them walk away or anything, but I think that's a big thing. Don't you guys?
Huge. And I think that's a large part of the reason why when Diamond Princess was quarantined in Japan, it spread the way it did. And everybody wants to point at the cruise lines again and say it's their fault, their petri dishes, whatever. But I think the reality of the situation is that the Japanese government wasn't allowing them to remove ill people from the ship in order to get them help. And so they started to infect everyone on the ship who wasn't ill until it was a large percentage of the total passenger count. And eventually Japan did set up a shoreside quarantine facility and allowed everybody to disembark. But by then it was too late. So I think we learned a lot of lessons there too about what needs to be in place. Even if a port says, yeah, sure, you have our permission to disembark anyone who's ill. But then that also requires prior planning to set up quarantine facilities ashore and make sure that the medical facilities in whichever port you're calling on are sufficient to handle not only your passengers, but also the people who live there in case it spreads.
I was also going to mention back that I forgot to say about the dining experience. Seasoned cruisers who have been on many, 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 many cruises know that besides just your table service dining, they have all these great just little fast restaurants like the pizza places and Iguana Grill on Carnival. There's a lot of ways that if you're still a little nervous, you can go those quick services and find your own little quiet corner, snuggle up with your honey, and and eat your food too. So just because we've had some comments in like some of our travel groups about the dining, there's still all of those great restaurants that you can take advantage of if you're still a little nervous. I wanted to remind people about that as well.
And to jump on that topic as well, I don't know what Carnival has, but I know that Princess Ocean Medallion has worked really hard on this, and I know that Virgin has something similar. But the ability to actually have food delivered to you, as opposed to you having to actually go to, Guy's Burgers and grab a burger, that could be something that could be rapidly accelerated over the next 3 to 6 months. Because it'd be kind of nice to say like, hey, I've got my table on Lido Deck, I've got my table over here, and I'm defending it against incursions, but I'm happy. I'm looking at the ocean, has some fresh air. I just would like a Guy's Burger without having to stand in line for 20 minutes. And I think technology like that, I didn't see that referenced, but if you can do it with drinks, you can certainly do it with food too.
That would be freaking amazing.
Well, it would help with the social distancing. It would help with a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of social distancing, though, and technology, they didn't specifically mention the app that Royal Caribbean developed in this report, but Royal and Norwegian has also said it's going to use it. Royal developed an app where you're going to be doing the muster drills virtually, like via app or via in-cabin TV. And they're going to be doing check-in. That's all contactless as well before you even board the ship. And not to just randomly keep, ping-ponging and switching gears here, but talking about boarding the ship, they really seem to have stepped up their game in terms of what they're going to require in order for people to board. And Heather, I know you mentioned it earlier for the crew members in particular, they're going to, for both crew and passengers, they're going to require a negative test result 1 to 5 days prior to boarding in order for you to be allowed to board. Where it's feasible, they're going to test everyone again when they get to the terminal before they board. And the crew members, once they board, are going to quarantine for 7 days. And I believe they said take another test on top of that before they're allowed to start their duties. They're not going to retest passengers once they're on board. And obviously the passengers are not going to have to quarantine for 7 days. But they're also going to sort of increase, I guess, the number of questions they're asking on their health screenings. Anyone who's cruised before knows that you have to answer a health questionnaire before you board any ship. It's been that way for a long time. But they're going to be starting to ask questions about whether or not you've been exposed to someone who has had a positive COVID test, where you've traveled to within the last however many days. And they're going to be taking temperatures as well. And the temperature checks are something that I think a lot of cruise lines are probably going to require at least daily to scan for symptoms.
So what I want to know is, these health screenings have been going on for a long time. I see people sign them. I don't think they read them. They just X the box and move on, right? And then you get somebody on the ship that you see is obviously has a really bad cold. Now, what happens to those people? Does anybody ever approach them and say, you look really sick and you signed this, you owe us, blah, blah, blah? What happens? Like, what are they going to do if somebody lies?
Exactly. It goes back to that list of consequences. Are there going to be any? And if so, who's going to be responsible for enforcing them?
Exactly, because Americans are not good at consequences or telling the truth.
and this is happening. Yeah, but this was actually a question on the request for public comment, and it had to do with, what sort of incentives or should incentives be offered to passengers who come forward and say, I can't cruise because I'm not feeling well. And if you've paid thousands of dollars to go on a sailing and you're risking losing all that money because you're at the port and you're not feeling well, it kind of almost gives you an incentive to not disclose it. So I think they really need to seriously consider some sort of policy that allows people to get their money back if that happens.
Exactly. No, I agree, because people now, I don't want to pinpoint Americans. I love America. I love, us Americans, but we do have this thing that's saying that, I'm free. I can do what I want to, and nobody else can tell me what to do. We're seeing it all over with people not wanting to wear masks. And it's like, the government's just having a guideline to protect other people. As a citizen, you have the responsibility to not cause other people harm. And when you're not wearing a mask, to me, that shows you don't care, and you don't care about causing someone else harm. That's just my own belief. But I know everybody's got their own. So that's the only thing we need to know what are the penalties or things like that, what's going to happen to you, because right now that's the main thing. We're going to go back, and you're right. The people who are going to go back right away are going to be the avid cruisers. They're not going to be, I say that, but then I think about the booze cruises. People like to go on the 3-day booze cruises, but the longer cruises are going to be filled with mainly avid cruisers who just want to get out there again.
Well, and I was already going to say, because we've had some conversations in my travel group, that people are already used to going into places that say that they require a mask, but not going in and wearing one, because businesses have told their employees, don't respond, don't initiate conversation with those that aren't wearing masks, because people get, we have a dog.
Sorry.
Because people get agitated and they're afraid of what they're going to do. So the conversation's been, if people are used to not have to following the rules, and if they don't follow the rules, there's no consequences, how will they react to that on the ship?
My gut tells me that one of the immediate differences between a cruise line and your local bar is the fact that the cruise lines already have security staff. And they already have a security protocol. They've already got a brig of some sort, I believe. And so it's just a matter of upscaling that that existing protocol if something gets done. But yeah, I don't want some Filipino bartender or I don't want to forget the rate. I don't want any of the guys to have to face that situation. But I think the threat of having a uniformed security officer stationed a few different places in the Lido deck to observe things will be sufficient to prevent that, because I think people aren't going to throw a fit the same way, and especially if they're being cautioned before they even get on the ship. And it's when you go to a bar, there's the window of introduction is immediate. When you go do a cruise ship, you're looking at an introduction of knowing the policies, knowing the rules for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months ahead of time. And so there's an expectation that you follow the rules, but hopefully that doesn't happen that way. But either way, no retail level associate should ever be accosted for enforcing the rules that aren't their decision.
Sorry, I have to stop for a second. I love dogs. That's Chloe, right? Oh, you're on mute. Is that Chloe?
Yes, this is Chloe.
Hi, Chloe.
Oh my God, she's so cute. Hi.
They are travel dogs. They travel everywhere with us, except for the cruises.
Oh, so cute.
Well, maybe on Cunard. I think
Yeah.
Cunard has dog friendly. But you have to have like the Imperial Suite or something like that. So if you've got like $100,000 to spend going from London or Southampton to New York, you could take your dog.
You better start getting that Instagram wrapped up, Chloe.
It's too cute. Oh my God.
Going back to what James was saying, as far as making sure that the passengers will know the expectations in that health plan, they did talk about recommending making sure you give the passengers plenty of notice of what the expectations on the cruise are as far as the safety guidelines. So I think as far as me, if I know the expectations going in, I'm more likely to do something I wouldn't necessarily do at home or whatever, but just to do it because, hey, I'm expected to do this now. Like I knew going in, and I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I think it's a good idea that they do give everybody plenty of notice.
I'm sure some people will ignore the rules. I'm sure some people will, have accidents. I mean, for God's sake, as diligent as Heather and I are with our mask wearing and social distancing and stuff, like, the other day Heather walked out to, I don't know where you walked out to, but she walked somewhere and she's like, oh my God, I forgot my mask. But it wasn't that she was being belligerent. It was that she was just careless, and that happens to everybody. I've done the same thing, and the difference is if somebody had been there before the line at Geisberger's or even stationed on the Lido deck and saw me walking around no mask, if that person had come over to me and said like, hey, where's your mask, dude? I would have been like, oh shit, sorry, and immediately put the mask on as opposed to being, I don't need to wear a mask, and that's the difference between, I think, the cruisers who are ultimately going to be cruising initially and the cruisers who have vocally rejected. I mean, if you go into any of the cruise forums, and honestly, it's not a value cruiser mentality versus a luxury cruiser mentality. I mean, the same conversations are happening on the Silver Seas and Viking message groups about, well, I'm not going to cruise if I have to wear a mask, as are happening on the Carnival one. So
I say good riddance. More cabin availability for the rest of us.
Absolutely.
I was going to say as well, kind of moving on to how, what are they going to use to protect us on the ship or make it more germ-free? One thing we've always talked about is the cruise lines are so good at cleaning everything. They really are. So this is the stuff they listed on this report is most of the things they have already done. So, I mean, there's hand sanitizer everywhere. Some of the cruise lines, the newer ships, have like instant, you stick in your hands into a machine and it soaks them and washes them and dries them all in one thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff already done. And you have somebody usually cleaning your room every day unless you tell them not to. So, I mean, things are really clean, but some of the things they're talking about adding are, the electrostatic sprayer, which basically just uses salt and water and sprays the room to disinfect. Ultraviolet light, which is really cool. One thing I think they should do is put the ultraviolet light in the duct system. I think that would just be an extra bonus. But, I mean, they plan on doing these to the rooms, sanitizing everything. So, like I said, they're already doing it, and they're just adding going extra and beyond, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and in terms of what they've already been doing, one of the things the cruise line is already really, really good at is CRM. Whereas I think, you go to a restaurant and nobody's going to know who went there and who didn't go there, aside from maybe the receipts. But literally everybody who goes on a cruise ship, everybody who books on a cruise ship, for God's sakes, Carnival, everybody who visits your darn website, you track them and know that James looked at this cruise, and you call me. Hi, this is Darla with Carnival Cruise Lines. I noticed you're looking at a cruise to Key West. I'm like, yeah, how the hell did you know that? But the point is not that how the hell did you know that, but that's contact tracing. That's the kind of stuff that the cruise line can do. So they're going to know exactly the juxtaposition of okay, we had Melissa in this cabin, and Melissa came down with COVID. So we know that Melissa's cabin is connected to blah, 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 air conditioning wise. So let's make sure we contact, James and Heather next. That kind of contact tracing, even on the ship, is going to be way more effective than anything you could do at a land-based hotel or at a restaurant or even I guess you could do it on a flight if you wanted to. But those are the kind of things that, again, playing on the strengths of the cruise lines already, while it's creepy in practice, it will be nice to see these things work out to our advantage to make cruising, safer. Because I would love to know faster if Melissa had COVID and I was in the cabin next to her, and maybe there's a chance that she touched my doorknob or whatever.
Well, and I laugh at that because one of the documents they cited in here, I showed Ashley and James yesterday. Did you guys, Daniel, Melissa, did you happen to see the video of the Japanese buffet? They cited it, but it was small. James, do you have the link you can show the video quick?
Here, let me keep talking, and I'll put it up there.
So everybody knows, at least who's watched any of our programs, I am a germaphobe. I hate buffets. I've always hated buffets because of germs. Like if I do have to go to a buffet, I take antibac with me. I've done this for years. There's probably tons of places that have my leftover antibacs because I lose them constantly. But, I wash my hands, I do all that. It just grosses me out. It has always grossed me out. Well, now I have proof in this video that I am the right one, that buffets are gross. And on the cruise lines, you're not going to be serving yourself. They're going to be, if you go to the buffet, it's going to be more like, oh, I would like that. So they'll put that on your plate. That way you're not touching, which to me, so much better. Some cruise lines already do that. Holland America does that for breakfast. I do know that. Oh, here's the video. Hold on. Okay. They're putting it on one guy's hand, right, to see how it spreads through the buffet. Just one person got this. Now they turn on the black light. Look at everything this guy has touched that has gone to other people.
That's disgusting.
That's so gross.
Okay, Heather.
What did Daniel say? I couldn't hear him.
You're not crazy, Heather.
I know, I'm not. And that's just one person that had that on their hands, and it spread everywhere.
The one thing I have to say, I understand it was trying to make a point, but the one thing that I don't like about this video is the fact that unless you're just putting a huge piece of snot on your hand, it's not going to be the same effect. I mean, that was a huge drop of whatever that fluid is.
No, you always have germs on your hands, James.
No, but
what if you sneeze? That kind of coats your hands nicely.
Yeah, but the difference is when it comes to infectious disease and most viruses, if you had a big ball of infectious disease, you're going to be much more likely to catch something. If you have a sneeze, or if you have a small touch, if I was to touch an object that has it, you're most likely not going to get infected, or at least not as highly infected. And this was clearly to make a point, and I acknowledge the point, and it's a good point, but it's not as dramatic in real life as it looks in here. Nonetheless, everything we do is connected, and certainly, we don't think about how things spread, but that food's kind of making me hungry. Even though it's got radioactive, snot on it.
Yuck. James is trying to justify buffets.
Yeah, no. Can we move away from this?
I miss my crab legs, gosh darn it.
Oh.
I was going to ask each one of you before we leave. Oh, sorry, Ash. I'll let you go. I was just going to say, what things do you already like that the cruise line does, and you want to give them a shout out for already being fantastic on something? Or it doesn't matter. I was just saying, like, something that you think, like I said, I think that the rooms, they do a really good job cleaning rooms, and, I don't know. I guess something positive, not to be after that dark, slime on the hand, something positive to add to it.
I think their attention to detail is impressive. I think, from the way they treat the cruisers to making sure everything is clean on a regular basis to, I know Daniel earlier mentioned that one of the things he liked was that they were talking about having separate, like, sort of treatment areas or quarantine areas for people who do have COVID and people who do not have COVID, which, would keep them separate and keep the spread down. And so one of the ways that they're going to be making these areas is they're going to be using some of the cabins that are not booked, which is why they're trying to keep capacity down. It allows them to spread things out. But one of the details they had in this report that I thought was great is that they're recommending that anything that can't be easily washed or sanitized be removed from the room. So carpeting will be taken out so they can easily clean the floors, that kind of stuff. So just another example of the level of detail that they're looking to kind of pay attention to make sure that people are safer.
One, I just wanted to reiterate the cleanliness. I mean, we've been on cruises where when you're going into the dining room, they've actually had staff standing there with the hand sanitizer. And this is before anything with COVID was happening, but they would be like, hey,
washy, happy.
That's right. So I think they're already, they were already doing a really good job of doing that. And, a lot of times they're, as soon as you leave the table, they're not only washing off the table, but they were washing off where you sit and everything, and making sure that everything was thoroughly clean.
Oh, definitely. I agree. The only thing, once again, to bring up my germophobia, is I noticed that they take, James, what are you showing?
Your friends in courteous terms.
This is the Royal Caribbean wash your hands video.
Wash your hands, it's the right thing to do. It's easy when you only have to. Wash your hands, keep them clean, oh yeah. Hey,
Wash your hands. Okay. Now, what was I going to say? Oh, silverware. I noticed that they take the silverware away. Like if you don't use it, even at your setting, they take it away, and I think they just put it in a pile. But I noticed people play with their silverware at times, or kids play with it. So I don't know. Maybe they can use like a steamer or some kind of high-end thing. I don't know. Or just put it to be washed again. That's my only other beef. I don't have many because I think it's very safe otherwise.
I think most industrial dishwashers have sanitizing properties, don't they?
Yes.
So I think that's probably already done.
And a very well-known mom blogger that we absolutely love, who now has a son who's probably 17, would no longer be able to play with the butter packets like he did when he was on the on the Carnival. Was that Elation? And and 5 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was really awkward and kind of not fun for us. But he was a kid. But those kind of things now, like I think you're not going to have butter packets to build forts with, again on cruise ships. But that's fine. So Huntley, cheers to you. It's at some point, you're going to have kids, and your kids are going to do ridiculous, silly, stupid stuff. But I look back at those kind of moments and say, like, hey, that's something that was funny at the time, but certainly it's going to be a modification for the future.
One of my favorite things on that most ships have is the self-serve ice cream. I will be devastated if they get rid of that. And I don't know how. I mean, maybe they'll have a crew member standing there serving it to people, but that just popped into my head when you mentioned the butter packets. I don't know why. Dairy theme, I guess, but I'm curious to see how they handle that.
If anybody has not been on a cruise, the first time you go on a cruise, you have to just park a chair by the soft serve machine, because there's some people who are pros. I swear to God, there's some people who work at Dairy Queen who go over there and they're like, oh yeah, I got this. And then there's people who take like plates, not just bowls, not just cones, but plates, and they're like, and put these mountains. It is absolutely ridiculous.
I spent 5 summers of my life working at Rita's. Do you guys have Rita's in California? Okay,
Flavor ice?
Yes, but so they have custard as well. So I'm like, I also enjoy watching people royally screw up the cones. I know that's mean, but it is fun to watch. It's almost right up there with Pier Runners for me.
We saw
Daniel said he's going to bring his sand pail next time and fill it.
What does he do?
I said Daniel said he's going to bring his sand pail next time to fill it.
Do it.
I love that stuff.
I think they'll probably stick it where they'll have staff someplace that's maybe 24 hours, like a pizza or the sandwich shop, and have those people do it. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're on Carnival, for instance, the pizza place is open 24/7, and so is the deli. So they'll just put it behind there. So you'll have to stand in a line, of course, but.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting question. I wonder from a non-humorous perspective, like Royal Caribbean does a really good job with the Coke machines, where it's a very self-service, whereas other lines you have to go to the bar and get it served. I wonder if those Coke machines, if you're going to have an attendant wiping it down every time, or if they're going to close it off entirely. Because the last thing or what I want is to touch a Coke machine, or even have something that my lips have touched be that close to the dispenser. But it's a really nice feature, so I don't know what they're going to end up doing.
Yeah, I know we have to call it a day soon, but that also just made me think, what about casinos? I mean, you're touching everything in there, from the levers or the buttons on the slot machines to, you're up at the poker table and you're just, resting your arms on it or whatever. It's by nature a very touchy-feely venue.
We'll just get more smokers to go to the casino, and they'll smoke more and kill the COVID.
I can tell you that here we have many casinos in the San Diego area, and yes, they've blocked off different machines and they wipe down after every use. So they'll probably have more staff working, or following just going around to each machine to machine. But maybe they should give everyone a glove, like a glove to use. I know we have to go. Any last words from anybody? Where'd Daniel go?
Yes. Well, we have to go to a vet appointments with Boomer, so he's getting the car ready. I just want to say I'm ready to get back to cruising because I've had 2 cruises canceled. So I rescheduled one, the big one, to Alaska for next year. So I'm really excited about that. And I don't have any worries at all. I'm ready to go. Let's just go now.
Well, Melissa, you should join us in March.
Ooh, maybe I should.
The couple who it's like, oh, I'm not going to go to a restaurant and dine in person. I'm not going to go to a grocery store and buy my stuff in person. But hell yeah, let's go book a cruise. But we're literally putting our mouth where our money where our mouth is, and we're booked on Carnival Miracle, March 18th. It's a 4-day easy cruise out of San Diego. We have a bowling alley balcony, which is one of those weird quirks in the Spirit class ships that has a double or triple length balcony because it's the way the room is positioned. So we'll
talk more about it in upcoming episodes. I know we've got to get going.
Yeah.
Any last words, Ashley?
That's it for me. I just want to take 2 seconds, I guess, to also shout out. We've been talking a lot about the stuff that this report is proposing to keep passengers safe, but they also included a lot of stuff in there for crew. So you can easily find the full report if you're interested in reading it. Just give it a Google. It is the Healthy Sail Panel.
It's actually linked in the description of the Facebook and YouTube posts.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Not sure what we're going to talk about next week yet. We'll see, but hopefully this helps you decide to go on the cruise you've been wanting to go on. And feel free to contact me at Flow Voyages. And as James said, March 18th, we're going on a cruise, and I'm going to set up a group so that if anybody wants to join us, basically it'll be a year since COVID started, so we're going to be cheering like, yay, we're finally getting on doing something. So we'll talk about it later, and stay tuned. And thank you to Daniel and Melissa for joining us today. Their website is roamingmyplanet.com, so check them out as well. And we'll see